Hi, welcome to the Art of Feminine Cinema. My name is Alyssa, and today I'm going to be talking about 1989's Heathers, written by Daniel Waters and directed by Michael Lehman. This movie follows the story of Veronica Sawyer, played by Winona Ryder, and the new kid in school, Jason Dean, or JD, played by Christian Slater. Veronica is friends with the most popular girls in school, all named Heather. Soon she befriends JD and they begin murdering people from their school, passing them off as suicides, though Veronica never really intended to kill these people. This film had a budget of $3 million and made $1.1 million at the box office, making it a box office fail. Though it wasn't a success in terms of money, within years it became a cult classic and the foundation for many movies to come. When the script was being pitched, it was turned down by many production companies, and it was finally accepted by a smaller company called New World Pictures. The reason it had such a hard time being picked up is because of the film's dark nature, and for that same reason, many actors turned down the role. They feared it would ruin their future in Hollywood. One actor who considered the role and read for the role was Brad Pitt, and this was before he had his big break. He had read for the role as JD, but the casting directors thought he looked too nice, too pretty to play such a monster, and as we now know, Christian Slater got the part. The film starts with Heather Chandler, or Heather 1, the most popular girl in school, tying her hair up with a red scrunchie. We start to hear Veronica's diary entry, which is basically her writing about how she hates her friends, which is a very common theme in this movie, and we soon learn why. Heather Chandler is the typical high school mean girl, and Veronica tries to go against what Heather is pushing, yet still listens to her. We see this when she easily gives in to Heather asking her to forge a note to embarrass the school outcast, Martha Dunstock, or as the rest of the school calls her, Martha Dumbtruck. They then start walking around doing a poll, and we hear one of the best lines in the movie.
Fuck me gently with the chainsaw. Do I look like Mother Teresa?
She eventually walks up to him and flirtatiously asks him the poll, but quickly walks away. We then see JD interact with the two mean jocks of the film, Ram and Kurt. He shoots blanks at them with a real gun because they are trying to scare him and bully him. I think this is the perfect way to set up the rest of the movie. You clearly understand who is who and what they believe. Next, Heather 1 invites Veronica to a college party. Here, Veronica stands up for herself when she's pressured into doing more than what she wants, while Heather 1 is in the other room also being pressured into doing something she doesn't want. But Heather doesn't stick up for herself. Veronica feels sick after all of this and begs Heather to leave and throws up in the middle of the hallway, forcing them to leave and end up fighting. We see Veronica in red lighting with a blue accent, and we see Heather 1 in a blue setting with red accents, but I'll get into that later. After the party, when Veronica is at home writing about how much she hates Heather, JD peeks his head through Veronica's window. The next morning, they go to Heather 1's house to make her a hangover cure, but really, they just want to give her something that'll make her puke her guts out, as Veronica says. JD pours a glass of cleaning chemicals into a cup, and Veronica thinks he's just making a dark joke. Veronica accidentally takes the cup full of chemicals to Heather, with JD fully aware that she grabbed the wrong cup. He even offers to give it to her so that Veronica doesn't notice.
Never mind, I'll carry the cup.
They wake Heather 1 up and offer her the drink, but she doesn't drink it. She doesn't trust them. She thinks they did something to her drink. So JD calls her chicken, and obviously Heather 1 cannot stand to be called a chicken. So she takes her red scrunchie off and drinks the chemicals. Heather 1 hasn't taken off this red scrunchie this entire movie. This is the first time you see her without it, and it symbolizes the exact moment she lost her power. Seconds after Heather drinks the chemicals, she's dead.
Corn nuts.
and Veronica starts panicking. JD quickly comes up with a cover for them, telling Veronica to forge a suicide note. It works, and everyone thinks Heather Chandler committed suicide. The school lets the students out for 1 hour to grieve, and we see the girls in the locker room complaining about how they only get 1 hour and not a whole week, but not actually mourning the loss of their best friend. In class, Veronica's teacher passes around Heather's suicide note to show its profound beauty, and she leans into glorifying suicide throughout the whole movie, while the rest of the school staff try to avoid the topic. This shows that no one at the school knows what to do and how none of them really care about these students. Now we meet JD's father, Bud Dean. They play a game where JD pretends to be the dad and his dad pretends to be the son. While they do act as if it's just a joke, we learn that Bud isn't really an active parent and JD's mom had passed away a few years ago, leaving JD to parent himself. At Heather Chandler's funeral, we see Heather's friends go up to her casket and pray, but none of them really have anything to say about her life, or the things they loved about her, or how they miss her. The next scene is Heather McNamara and Veronica on a double date with Ram and Kurt, where again, Veronica stands up for herself while Heather doesn't. But this time, she is physically unable to stop him. Heather is clearly being sexually assaulted in the background of the shot as we see Veronica tell Kurt no to his sexual advances.
When I get that feeling, I need sexual healing.
Yeah, right, asshole.
JD rolls up to their date, causing Veronica to leave Heather there alone with the jocks while being assaulted. At school the next day, Kurt went around telling everyone that Veronica had done things with both Kurt and Ram.
Okay, now I rarely listen to Neanderthals like Kurt Kelly, but he said that he and Ram had a nice little sword fight in your mouth last night. You know what I mean?
Ew!
So, Veronica and JD make a plan to humiliate and scare both Ram and Kurt, telling them to meet her in the woods to make the rumors become a reality. Veronica is under the impression that they are just going to be shooting them with tranquilizers and not really doing any damage to them, yet also writing a suicide note, making it look like the two were lovers. In this scene, you can see Veronica start to question JD, but still go along with what he says, just as she would do with Heather 1, despite her gut feeling of knowing that something's not right there. In the morning, the boys meet up with Veronica in the woods, fully convinced a menage a trois is about to go down. She starts counting, and JD interrupts her, saying 3 and shooting Ram, while Veronica is supposed to be shooting Kurt, but intentionally misses him. JD freaks out and runs after him, making Veronica realize that what they shot were real bullets. JD chases Kurt back to Veronica and yells at Veronica to shoot, and she does, making this her first intentional kill, and they get away with it again.
Did you hear? School's canceled today because Kurt and Ram killed themselves in a repressed homosexual suicide pact.
No way.
The next scene, she is back in her room writing in her diary. Something I thought was really fascinating about this scene is her nightstand. The drawer knobs are all punctuation symbols, but none of them are semicolons. The semicolon is used as an affirmation and solidarity against suicide, but that started back in 2013, so this was just a weird coincidence. But I do find it interesting that the semicolon was not one of the knobs. I think it would have been a great way to comment on how Veronica is not taking responsibility for her actions and making a joke of suicide. But then again, it is just pure coincidence. At school, after the funeral, we see Veronica wearing purple for the first time. Every other scene, she's in blue or black or gray or all three. But once again, I'll get back to that. At this point, Veronica decides to break up with JD. He sexually assaults her as she's trying to leave, and this is the first time she wasn't able to stop it before it happens, but she does get him off of her. He goes back to school and convinces Heather Duke, the Green Heather, to take Heather Chandler's spot as Queen Bee. He blackmails Heather with a picture of her and Martha Dunstock from when they were younger. He also gives her the red scrunchie that Heather wore every day. He needs a power source to get the whole school to sign a petition, and he makes Heather Duke that power source. Veronica, after struggling with what to do, decides to invite her old friend Betty over for a game of croquet, where you can see Veronica wanting to go back to who she was before she befriended the Heathers. But of course, the Heathers interrupt their game, making Betty leave as quick as possible, and Heather Duke saying, "I'm red," officially stating that she is taking Heather Chandler's position.
Betty, leaving so soon? I'm red.
The next day, at school, Martha Dunstock decides to commit suicide by walking into oncoming traffic, but she survives. Heather Duke makes light of the situation, calling her a wannabe and doing it just because the popular kids did it, and Veronica slaps her. After that, they calm down and they turn on a radio show where Heather McNamara calls in and starts talking about her personal issues. Heather Duke says she's going to tell the whole school the next day, just as Heather Chandler said to Veronica when Veronica puked at the party. And Heather Duke does just that. She tells the whole school. This causes Heather McNamara to attempt suicide in the school bathroom by ODing on pills. However, Veronica catches Heather before she can swallow them and talks her out of it. After yet another argument with Heather Duke,
Why are you such a mega bitch?
Because I can be.
JD goes up to Veronica where she jokes about faking another suicide with Heather Duke as the victim. I think this shows the manipulative grip JD holds on Veronica. She tries to fight him at every corner, but he knows exactly how to get in her head, if only for 1 second.
It's over, JD. Over.
Because Veronica decided not to get back together with JD, he decides he's going to fake her suicide. He gives her a note showing that he can forge her handwriting, and Veronica quickly puts 2 and 2 together. She goes upstairs and takes a nap, which honestly I don't know how she could sleep knowing JD is coming to kill her, but that's what she does. She takes a nap. She has a dream where JD is at Heather Duke's house and is about to slit Heather's wrist, but Veronica refuses to help. So JD locks her out of the room and Veronica is left feeling helpless. She's then transported to Heather Duke's funeral, which is the best dream sequence I've ever seen in cinema.
Heather Duke underlined a lot of things in this copy of Moby Dick, but I believe the word Eskimo, underlined all by itself, is the key to understanding Heather's pain. On the surface, Heather Duke was the vivacious young lady we all knew her to be. But her soul was in Antarctica, freezing with the knowledge of the way fellow teenagers can be cruel, the way that parents can be unresponsive, and as she writes so eloquently in her suicide note, the way that life can suck. We'll all miss Sherwood's little Eskimo.
Anyway, she wakes up from her nightmare and starts planning to fake her own suicide before JD can. He gets to her room and he sees that she's hanging from the ceiling and he believes that she's actually dead, or at least that's what it looks like. I'm not really sure where I stand on that. I don't know if I think he actually believed it or not. But regardless, he tells her his plan to blow up the school. The petition he had going around school was actually a suicide note, and with every signature that signed it, it made it look like they agreed with the suicide note that JD had written. At school, the teacher who glorifies suicide says to Veronica,
Veronica! JD told me you committed suicide last night. Where is he? Where's JD?
We have to talk. Whether to kill yourself or not is one of the most important decisions a teenager can make.
further showing how inconsiderate her teacher is, though she is acting as if she cares deeply. Veronica, knowing JD's plan, tries to stop him and finds him in the boiler room and points a gun at him. Only, he quickly knocks the gun out of her hand and knocks her down. She regains control of the gun and asks him how to turn off the bomb. He replies by cursing at her and flicking her off, which in turn Veronica shoots his middle finger off.
How do I turn off the goddamn bomb, asshole?
Fuck you!
While trying to stop the bomb from going off, JD sticks a knife in it. I think to make it go off before the timer ends, but he ends up stopping the timer altogether. I'm not sure of the logistics of this, but he stops the timer and the bomb doesn't go off, and Veronica shoots him twice. She walks out of the boiler room to the gym, where no one seems to see her, looking like she just came back from war, and she walks outside, where JD follows her. He says to her,
"You got power. Power I didn't think you had."
which is exactly what I've been saying this whole time. We see it with every decision made in this movie, from the clothing to the lighting to the framing, and of course with the dialogue. After telling Veronica she has power, he reveals he's wearing a bomb and walks out into the yard in front of her. She pulls out a cigarette and waits for him to light up. After he blows up, she walks back inside as if everything was normal and runs into Heather Duke. She takes the scrunchie of power, solidifying the fact that she is the powerful one of the group. And it ends with Veronica going up to Martha Dunstock, asking her if she wants to hang out and watch movies on the night of prom. Martha says yes, and they walk off. Now, onto other aspects. The colors. The color in this film is extremely important and was clearly used very intentionally. We see a lot of foreshadowing in this movie with the use of color. One scene that stuck out to me was the part where Heather Chandler and Veronica were at the party. As I said before, we see Veronica in red lighting with blue accents, and we see Heather 1 in a blue setting with red accents. In this movie, red represents power and blue represents weakness. So in this scene, it shows that Heather 1 is showing off as a powerful person, but is actually weak, while Veronica is portraying a weak person, but she is actually powerful. In the scene shortly after this, we see Veronica and Heather 1 arguing in blue and red lighting with a fire behind them. The fire shows that they are fighting over that power. The red is more on Heather 1, and the blue is more on Veronica, because Veronica feels like she's losing the battle with Heather when she says she's going to tell the whole school what happened. I mean, we see this fight time and time again between the two, even after Heather 1's death. The watch Heather McNamara gives Veronica is red and blue, showing the weakness and power they both held. Another instance with red lighting is towards the end. Veronica walks into red lighting and stops in it. The way I see it, Veronica is reassuring herself in that moment that she is powerful and can stop JD. Another key component of color is with the red scrunchie, which I call the scrunchie of power. It is used as the physical form of power, something tangible that makes them feel powerful. Heather 1 wears it up until right before she dies. Heather Duke wears it when JD tells her that she needs to be the next Queen Bee. And Veronica takes it from Heather Duke at the end when she fully recognizes her own power. Heather Chandler is red, Heather Duke is green, Heather McNamara is yellow, and Veronica Sawyer is blue. Heather Chandler is red for obvious reasons. Power. She just wants to be perceived as powerful, so she wears red every day to further that narrative. Veronica Sawyer is blue, not because she is weak, but because she's seen as weak by her peers and herself. Veronica is always wearing blue, except in one outfit, as I mentioned before. We see her in a purple jacket. Purple is the mix of red and blue. And at this point in the film, Veronica breaks up with JD, and JD begins to see her real power. So while JD is seeing her weakness and her power mixed, Veronica is also feeling powerful and powerless at the same time. She's very unsure of herself and what she's done, knowing what she did was bad, but also making her feel like she has more power than she realized herself. Therefore, we get purple. Heather Duke is green because she's envious of Heather 1. We see throughout that Heather Duke wants what Heather Chandler has.
First you ask if you can be red, knowing that I'm always red.
And we also see her turn into red. She is no longer green because she is no longer jealous of Heather 1. She has everything Heather 1 had, so of course she's going to take her color too. Heather McNamara is yellow because she is the loyal, friendly, and cheerful friend. Yellow represents her perfectly. I also want to add that when yellow is overused, it tends to cause anxiety. Heather McNamara is easily the most anxious out of all 4 of them. From calling the radio show about her problems in her room that is completely covered in yellow, to her attempting suicide with all yellow pills. The one time we see Heather not wearing yellow is when she attempts suicide while wearing her cheer uniform, which is red and black. The red here represents Heather trying to take control over her own life to feel powerful, and the black represents death. Though in that scene, she still has an article of yellow on her watch, and I think this is to show that she doesn't actually want to die, but feels like it is her only option because that's what everyone else is doing.
Everyone jump off a bridge, would you? Probably.
Something else I want to talk about is angles. There are a lot of angled shots in this movie, and they all show the deeper meaning of the text. Right after Heather 1 dies, we see Veronica sit down and JD stand next to her. JD is standing above her. However, the angle is shot from below, making JD and Veronica look down at Heather, implying that Veronica feels powerful too, even though that's not what she's saying. Another angled shot we see is when Martha decides to take her own life. She's sitting in the gym all alone, and it's shot from below. Martha feels powerful in this moment for the same reason as Heather McNamara. They both got that feeling of control over their own life that made them feel powerful even in the time where they wanted to die. One last angle I want to talk about is my favorite of the whole film. It's not necessarily angled, but it feels as if it is. The scene in the woods before Veronica and JD shoot the jocks, the background behind her is at a slant. It feels unbalanced, like something is off. That's how Veronica feels going into this plan. The background behind the jocks are straight because they have no doubts about what they're going to do there. But every time it goes back to Veronica, it's slanted. That is until JD runs after Kurt and Veronica starts to understand what exactly is happening and that her unsure feeling was right. The background for her then becomes straight. But now, Kurt is the confused one. He's realizing that he's not there for what he expected, and the shots become slanted again. When he makes his way back up to Veronica, the shot is actually angled, and it turns into a level shot. This shows how Veronica is unsure and hesitates to shoot him, and as it levels out, she makes the decision to shoot. Overall, this movie is a comment on society and its reaction to suicide. The entire movie is people not caring about suicide while acting as if they do. It's just portrayed in an extremely dramatized way. You could also argue that it's about finding your power from within, because that's what I've been saying this whole video. Lastly, I want to leave you with some movie recommendations, because when you Google it, you get movies about teen suicide or just 80s teen movies. I want to give you some movies that are actually similar to Heather's, at least in the way that they're satire or they're kitsch or camp. So here's my list of movies that I think you would enjoy if you enjoyed Heather's. I hope you enjoyed my video, and I would love for you to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Please feel free to leave any questions that you may have about my video or the film itself, and let me know what feminine movie you would like for me to talk about next.